Hey there, welcome back. It's Mr. Darby's art class, and thanks for joining us today. I want to take a minute today and teach you about something that's driven me crazy for the last 10 years, and that is how to use scissors. I've looked for videos all over the place to try and teach kids how to use a set of these, and I can't find one that I really like. So this is a perfect time to take a minute and talk about scissors. Look. Your pair of scissors, I don't care if they're kid scissors or adult scissors, I just care that you're careful with them. You know, I've seen people say, oh, you walk with them this way, you know, and you walk carefully. Don't ever hold scissors like this when you walk around because you could poke somebody or poke yourself. I've also seen kids holding them like this. That's not good either, because if you fall down or you take a big step, you can come down and poke yourself in the leg too. All right? Most importantly, you don't want to run with scissors, and that's a rule in the classroom. It should be a rule in the house. Another rule in the house to follow is don't leave your scissors anywhere that you would regret. For example, don't leave them on the couch. That's a good way to find them in your leg. You don't want stitches. Don't leave them on the floor. Maybe you're cutting and doing crafts on the floor. You better make sure you pick them up. You don't want to leave them open when you're done with them, because then you might get damaged somehow. Both ends might get into your leg. I'm being creative, but we don't need to live it out. We don't want to reenact it. Always put them away when you're done, okay? Some safety scissors are round on the end. Maybe they're not as sharp. Hey, if you sit down on the couch or you jump on it because you're excited to be done with your work for the day, and you jump and you land on those scissors, it is not going to feel good. But won't you feel even worse if it's somebody else you care about and it's your fault, right? You don't want to find yourself in your own timeout. You don't want to find yourself getting grounded. You don't want to lose video games for the next week. You don't want to get privileges taken away from you. There's way too many things that we want to be doing on nice days like these, and we have to be careful with our scissors. That being said, if you look at the scissors, you'll notice the scissors have a big hole and a small hole. If your pair of scissors has a small hole and another small hole, then it's just really made for a finger and a thumb. One of the mistakes we try to make is by fitting all of our fingers into that big hole. Well, yes, the big hole is for our fingers, but it doesn't mean that you have to get them all in there. Some people like to just put their bottom fingers in and leave their pointer finger out. Some would rather put all their fingers in the front and leave their pinky out. Is there a right way to do it? Well, you might just find a way to be comfortable. You might notice I'm using my left hand. I'm a lefty. I used to cry because in school I would not have a pair of scissors that worked for me. If I look back far enough and I remember the days that I spent in third grade working with scissors, I remember crying in one of my teacher's classes because everybody had a pair of silver scissors. They were made for right-handed people only. Their suggestion to me was, learn how to cut with your right hand and it won't be a problem. They did have a pair of left-handed scissors. It had a green handle, but there was like one in the whole school and I couldn't always get them. So I struggled to cut, and even to this day, I don't like cutting because it brings up those memories. I'm not wounded from it, but cutting just never really been a fun thing for me. All right. So we got our scissors pointed away from us. That's important. If you have your scissors pointed away from you, then you're ready to cut. If you have your scissors turned upside down, like this, you have the big hole on top. You can't really fit your fingers in those holes and cut correctly. I do see kids do this sometimes. This is not a good way to hold your scissors, and it's not going to help you cut on the lines. And that's what we're trying to get to, right? So turn your scissors over this way. That way the small hole's on top so your thumb can be up. Put your fingers inside the big hole, your thumb inside the small hole. And then you can open and close with power. If this is difficult for you, you might not use your fingers enough. You should probably start playing something besides swipe the screen. Okay? So we're ready to cut. Always thumb on top, fingers on the bottom, scissors pointed away. I've also seen kids who will point their scissors like this. Thumb is on top, fingers are on the bottom, but when they cut toward their body. That's a huge no-no. You don't ever want to do that either, okay? So we have our hand with our fingers in the big hole, thumb in the top hole, and we're ready to cut. Mr. Darby, what do we do with our other hand? Well, your other hand doesn't have scissors. It should have the paper. This hand is going to be our helping hand. Our helping hand holds the paper tight so that as we cut, we can turn the paper, all right, and we can cut along curved lines or even in tight spots. In fact, the scissors hand, the hand you hold the scissors with, shouldn't turn all that much. It can usually stay straight on. Another artist who was really good at cutting was Henry Matisse. Henry Matisse made cutouts, and he used huge shears that were for cutting fabrics. And his family was a family of tailors, so they actually made clothing, and he got really good at using scissors. If you ever watch any of his videos, you would check out how confident he is with his scissor cutting and the artwork that he made from it. So, now that we know how to hold our scissors, we're ready to get started. You can get your white paper or color paper, draw a few lines on it, maybe make some easy and then gradually get more difficult, but you're trying to follow those lines to cut shapes. At some point, you'll want to be able to trace your hand and then cut your hand out. That's pretty difficult without cutting off fingers. That's really hard, but that's an important skill that you're going to want to work on. As you get older, cutting becomes easier, but that's because it involves practice. Hopefully you're practicing. Practice makes progress. Let's go practice. I've got my paper set up for cutting today. I've got simple lines, right? But once we get good at these simple lines, guys, you know and I know that we can actually make it more complicated, can't we? We can make it so that you're cutting out clubhouses or tree houses, or you can make crowns out of these. You know, any kind of cutting you can do is going to help you out with building muscles and strength in your hand. All right, I've got my scissors and I got them pointed up. I've got my fingers in the big hole, my thumb in the small hole. This is my left hand. It's my cutting hand. That makes my right hand my helping hand. So I'm going to grab my paper and I want to kind of be close to this line that we're going to cut. This first line, all right? I don't want it so close that I would cut my fingers with the scissors. That wouldn't be good for anybody, all right? But I don't want it way out here either, because then I can't control the paper nearly as well. So I keep my hand close and I start by opening up my scissors really big. Sometimes I see kids opening them up just a little bit and then they can only do a little bit of cutting. So I start to cut. When I cut, I don't want to close the scissors the whole way. I don't know if you can see that very well, but I keep my scissors open just a little bit. If I cut the whole way, then when I start the next one, the next cut, sometimes the paper falls off and it's hard to get the scissors up into where you left off. So I start and I cut and I squeeze my scissors open and shut, following the line. But remember, when I open them as big as I can, and when I shut, I don't shut them the entire way. Almost, but not the entire way. Let's try another cut. I start here. Notice my scissors are still pointed away from my body. My helping hand is close to my starting line. And then as I cut, I use my helping hand to turn the paper. And I cut very slowly. I say this all the time in school. If you want to cut fast, cut slow. Because if you cut very fast, you'll cut something wrong and you'll end up having to redraw it and recut it. That seems simple because I went slow, but it really only took a few seconds. And I mostly stayed on the line. Maybe I messed up a little bit right here and right here, but we're not telling anybody. As I cut the zigzag line, I don't have to close my scissors the entire way. If you could see that from the side, I stop, I turn the paper with my helping hand, and I cut again until I get to where the line stops. Then I turn the paper with my helping hand again, open my scissors really big, and then close them until it gets to the line where I have to stop. Open, close. Notice how my helping hand moves along the paper while I cut. This will give me more control. back and forth, not closing the scissors completely. And a little further, all the way to the end. Now, maybe you get to an end where it's really difficult to get your hand up inside this paper, look at it, fumbling around. There's no reason you can't turn your paper around. Open it up, and then cut and connect. There you have it, all right? There's your next line. Now, this one is just about having patience. We don't have a lot of patience, do we? We always want to be done with everything right away. And this one you just really have to slow down on. Again, with your helping hand, holding the paper, open your scissors up, fingers in the big hole, if you have one, and thumb in the small hole. Line it up, close your scissors slowly, and then use your helping hand to turn the paper. And I don't even have to open my hand up the whole way every time. When I get on that line, I'm happy. I stop cutting and I turn the paper. You have to be careful not to trim your paper all the way off. Could you imagine if I wanted this and I was cutting fast, I might cut up and go, hey, that's really nice. And when I cut over, I'm in a hurry and I snip off my paper. Now I've ruined it. I have to tape it back together or glue it with a glue stick. This is not good, right? What if we wanted that connected? You'll be upset. You'll want to quit. We don't want you to quit. We don't want to quit because we want to make things for fun, right? We want to build. We want to be creative. And sometimes I've seen kids do this. It gets difficult here, right? We turn it around and we start cutting from the other end. But then, because it's hard to turn it back and forth, they'll try to cheat. And they'll cut across like this. I did not stay on the line. I did not stay on the line. And now because I didn't stay on the line, look, I missed a spot. If I cut on this line now, I might be able to fix this piece, but this piece over here has been cut off. I would have to put it back together with tape, right? Or a glue stick. Either way, it's not going to look nearly as nice. I want you to be as creative as you can, but I want you to spend some time practicing with scissors. Scissor cutting is really important. It's a good skill to have. It teaches you dexterity and it strengthens your fine motor skills. So practice. Practice makes progress. Here's a lot of paper cutting that we did today. We did a lot of good exercise lines and practice lines, and who knows what you want to make out of these little pieces. Find some other paper and glue them down if you can, and if not, tape them down, and if not that, then fold them up and make something else cool out of them. Be creative and keep practicing, everybody. I'll talk to you soon.